What if I told you that Ferrari is literally reprogramming Lewis Hamilton's brain to make him a completely new pilot before the Netherlands GP? What they are doing in Maranello is not preceded. This is not a theory. It is a real covert operation that is happening right now. Lewis Hamilton arrived in Ferrari for the 2025 season surrounded by a fog of expectations, nostalgia, and pressure. It was not simply a team change. It was the beginning of a project that promised to close his career with a story worthy of a film. The most successful pilot of the modern era, leading the resurgence of the most historical team of Formula One. But from the first Grand Prix, the reality was implacable. Hamilton's debut in Melbourne was a cold water bath. The SF25 did not respond as expected. Chemistry with the car did not appear. Ferrari made strategic mistakes that left him stagnant, even behind clearly lower cars. And instead of answers, each race opened new questions. The myth of the infallible pilot staggered in front of the eyes of the world. But the most serious fracture did not happen on the track, but inside Hamilton himself. It was in Hungary where emotional collapse became evident. In front of the press, Hamilton did not hide his frustration. "I feel completely useless." Hard words, painful but above all sincere. There did not speak the champion of 7 titles, spoke a broken human being inside. In that same weekend, he slid an even more alarming phrase: "Maybe Ferrari needs another pilot." It was a dart to his own process. A kind of tacit resignation disguised as reflection. A line that we had never heard of him in more than 15 years of career. That statement was a silent earthquake within Ferrari. Not only did it reflect a technical disconnection, but a deep emotional fracture. For a pilot like Hamilton, whose strength has always resided in his unwavering confidence, recognizing doubt was almost like admitting defeat. The myth of the gladiator began to crack. And yet that moment was also the necessary breakdown. During the summer break, when Formula One enters its usual lethargy and the teams publish rest photos, beaches, travel, Lewis decided to write another story. From the outside, it seemed that he was relaxed, enjoying Greece with his dog Roscoe. But what really happened was a kind of technical spiritual retirement. A voluntary exile to the Maranello Operations Center. While the press speculated, he delivered to an intense, almost military routine of private sessions, analysis, and internal reconstruction. This was not a break. It was a metamorphosis. Hamilton was not on vacation, he was remaking his identity as a pilot. No cameras, without interviews, without distractions. At closed doors, something radical began to take shape. A total rehabilitation plan that would mark the turning point in its stage with Ferrari. A confidential project that, without anyone knowing, was about to change everything. And that decision would change forever. Not because he solved his problems immediately, but because he marked the beginning of a new chapter. One where the fall was not the end, but the basis on which to build a new legend. A more silent, more strategic, deeper. One that was not screaming from the podium, but cooked in the shadows. Because to rebuild a champion, you must first dismantle it completely. And Ferrari, as we will see, was willing to do it. The Reset Hamilton project is not a conventional operation within the paddock. It is not a simple pilot correction, nor a restructuring of physical routines. It is a radical intervention on the pilot's very essence. Ferrari did not limit himself to analyzing Lewis' mistakes from a mechanical point of view. They decided to go further, reprogram their competitive brain from the root. Because for them, the real problem was not the car nor the team. It was Hamilton's internal software, deeply shaped by a decade in Mercedes. For more than 10 years, Lewis developed reflexes, habits, decision-making patterns, and reading of the car with a completely different logic from the one Ferrari dominates. And that legacy is not erased with words. It crawls as a subconscious inheritance, a kind of fingerprint in its driving. Italian engineers knew it. And so they decided that it was not enough to make him understand the car. You had to teach him to drive it from scratch. Thus the plan that internally baptized as Reset Hamilton Project was born. The first phase was executed in Maranello simulators, in sessions designed with surgical precision. Hamilton was exposed to deliberately uncomfortable, artificial, even contradictory conditions. The car calibrations were altered on purpose. Unstable motor maps, asymmetric suspensions, unbalanced aerodynamic load. Each parameter was manipulated to challenge its muscle memory, to force it to reconstruct its instinctive responses under a new technical paradigm. The objective of this reprogramming was to eliminate what engineers call perception residues. That is, that false feeling that a pilot drags from a previous car and leads to react wrongly in limit situations. Ferrari understood that Hamilton's mind was reacting as if the Mercedes W14 still led, with its own hydraulic system, its type of wheel feedback, its inertia characteristics. Therefore, the mission was clear: to erase that conditioned memory and replace it with new neuronal connections linked to the behavior of the SF-25. Each session was monitored with an obsessive level of detail. Not only did the times or precision in curves measure, they analyzed the consistency of their trajectories, the evolution of their braking points, the learning curve against new configurations. Everything was registered, filed, interpreted. At the end of each day, technical debriefing sessions were held with Hamilton, where not only data were evaluated, but also emotions. What did you feel? Where did he doubt? When did it lose fluidity? This feedback became an invaluable tool to redesign not only the car's setup, but the pilot's sensory environment. In parallel, Ferrari activated the virtual model of Chassis Project 677, an evolution of the 2025 car that will be the basis for future updates. This tool allowed Hamilton to directly compare the current car with the future, contributing to insights that no other pilot could offer. His previous experience in another technical universe now became an advantage. He was the only one capable of clearly identifying the structural differences between design philosophies and contributing ideas to make the most universal Ferrari more compatible with diverse driving styles. This technical exchange not only raised Hamilton's profile within the team, he also redefined his role. If a frustrated pilot struggling to adapt became a strategic development piece. Not a simple order executor, but an active collaborator in the process of evolution of the car. And that changed internal dynamics, because now it was not only about recovering a champion, it was about rearming him with a knowledge that no other grid pilot possesses. The reset was not a humiliation, it was an opportunity, a bold bet that no other team would dare to do. But Ferrari historically has never been a team of half-inks, or fail with drama or reborn violently. And this project with Hamilton is the perfect symbol of that philosophy. One that, if it works, will not only redeem a pilot. I could mark the beginning of a new era within the Scuderia. Zandvoort is not just a technical circuit with parallel curves and violent rhythm changes. It is also a symbolic scenario. It is the house of Max Verstappen, the epicenter of the Dutch fervor by the world champion. Presenting there with a competitive Hamilton is not just a sports challenge. It is a political statement within F1. Ferrari does not want Zandvoort to be another career. He wants it to be the turning point, the public act of resurrection of Lewis Hamilton. The day the silence breaks and the world see the result of months of secret work. But to achieve this, it is not enough to refine the car. You have to refine the pilot. Hamilton needs to reach that race with a total level of symbiosis with the SF-25. Without a doubt. No interference. Without internal noise. And that means accelerating the closure of the reprogramming cycle, maximizing each session in simulator, perfectly coordinating the engineering, aerodynamic, and strategy departments. Each person inside Ferrari, from the head of strategy to the telemetry analyst, is aligned with that goal, that Zandvoort is not a defense but an attack. In this context, the reset project ceases to be a simple technical solution. It becomes a total commitment to the narrative. If it works, Hamilton will not only redeem its season, will transform its public image, silence rumors, and establish a new hierarchy within the team. And if it fails, the damage will be irreversible. The sabotage story will gain strength, the fracture with Leclerc will deepen, and the Ferrari-Hamilton project could become one of the most sounded disappointments of the recent history of F1. What Ferrari is running with Lewis Hamilton at this time does not resemble anything we have seen before in modern Formula One. It is not simply a technical adaptation strategy, nor is it a standard learning or integration process. It is a deep, deliberate, meticulous transformation, which reconfigures the relationship between a legendary pilot and a machinery that has still failed to tame it. This operation, which moves in the shadows under the name of Proyecto Reset, not only looks for results, seek to break a paradigm. The very idea that a veteran pilot cannot reinvent himself, who is doomed to drag his old habits as invisible chains, is being completely challenged. Ferrari is not trying to return to Hamilton what was in Mercedes. It is building a new version, more accurate, more adaptable, more dangerous. And yet there is something even more fascinating in all this. The silence. The absolute absence of noisy statements, public promises, of manufactured scandals. Everything is developing in the gloom, with an almost surgical discipline. The Scuderia has understood that, in an era of media overexposure, true power lies in the control of the narrative. And they are waiting for the exact moment to reveal it. That moment, as we have seen, has a name and date: the Grand Prix of the Netherlands. That will be the collision point between the old and the new. Between the public perception of a Hamilton in decline and the reality of a pilot who has been rebuilt from the depths of his competitive nucleus. And now it's your turn. Do you think Ferrari is doing the right thing to bet on a plan for Hamilton? Or is it too late to rebuild what was once the most dominant pilot of the 21st century? Do you agree that the team uses silence as a strategy against media chaos? Leave your opinion below.